What about you? LA based? Where are you?
Man, I'm the only odd man out. I'm the only person on the Brain Trust team that's not in California. I'm
What
based
are
in
you?
Washington, D.C.
Ah, excellent. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's nice on the East Coast.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, good to see everybody. Back-to-back events. We're active this month. See you folks. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. List your businesses so Fred can take a look. We've got a very special guest today. It's going to be a good one. All right. Everyone, we'll get started 3 minutes after. There we go. Happy Friday, everybody. Amazing. Yeah, feel free to keep those introductions going. Always love to see it. Give it one more minute and here we go. Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you all here. We truly appreciate you all taking the time. You could be anywhere, but you're taking your time to be here with us, and we will not disappoint. We have a very special guest. I may be a new face to some of you all, so I'm going to briefly introduce myself. My name is Ryan Pierce, and I'm the proud venture analyst here at the Brain Trust Fund. And thank you, because this is the second virtual session of our retail series. I'm proud to introduce our next guest here today, Mr. Fred Collins. He's a very seasoned and experienced executive and professional within the beauty space, and he's going to be dropping some nuggets of knowledge on us today regarding his background and the best ways to navigate within the industry. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Fred to kick things off for us. Thank you again.
No, I appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you so much. I'm hoping you guys can hear me okay. I am extremely pleased to be invited to this fireside chat. It's an amazing opportunity and a great chance for me to get introduced to just some amazing people. So I'm excited about that. So as Ryan said, my name is Fred Collins. I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer at UOMA Beauty. And I've got a few slides. I'll take just a few minutes, maybe introduce myself a little further, talk about kind of my experience, the UOMA brand itself, some of the ways that we go about, looking at strategy from a retail perspective, and then I'll kind of open it up for questions and we'll kind of take it from there. So hopefully that works for you guys. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen really quickly. Can you guys see my screen?
Looks good on my end.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'll do, I guess, is I'll introduce myself here. So again, Fred Collins, little personal notes about me. I've been married to my wife, Jan, for 27 years. Happily married. I've got 2 kids. My son, Miles, he's in logistics for Amazon. Actually out in Oxnard, California. He's 25. And then my daughter, Maya, she's 20. She's a sophomore at Brown University in Rhode Island. She actually is a student athlete. She runs track and field there as well. Just to give you a little bit of it on my background. So professionally, I spent 20 years, actually a little bit more in the beauty space. I've worked for Procter & Gamble Beauty. I've worked for Cal. Hinkle Beauty, and then my last kind of role within the, let's call it, kind of CPG world was with Coty. I've had roles anywhere from regional directors to VP of sales to general manager, specialized in reorganizations, distribution expansion, and strategic planning. One of the things I also did is I had a little bit of experience as an entrepreneurial, so I actually launched a PPE brand where we made masks, especially during the COVID a few years back, undercover brands. That's a picture of kind of a proud moment for me when I got my first POs in from some retailers, and then of course I had to run out to the store and take a picture of myself with one of the masks that we made next to the product sitting at on the counter there at TJ Maxx. So I've experienced it from the other side as well. So it's always a great experience to be able to talk to founders as well. And then one of the things I'm very passionate about is economic empowerment in the Black community. So one of the things I also do is I have a construction company and I build homes in underprivileged communities, trying to allow people of color to be able to invest in home ownership and build a legacy for their families. So currently, as I mentioned, I'm a chief operating officer at UOMA Beauty. And if you guys are not familiar about UOMA Beauty, it was founded by Sharon Shooter. I won't kind of read all of this in detail, but it was a brand that Sharon founded 4 years ago that was based on diversity and inclusion and allowing people to be their authentic self. So it's a color cosmetic brand with some skincare as well, but it's really focused on giving people a voice and having them connect with a brand that is truly about them being authentic. We've got two brands. We've got a prestige brand, which is premium quality with luxury packaging, price point, anywhere between $15 to $45. But we also have a mass brand as well, with natural ingredients, 100% recyclable packaging, basically everyday use. And then the price point is, closer to that $6 to $18 to $21 price range, depending on the product. The reason for that was really Sharon had started with the prestige brand. Again, I wanted to create a brand that was that people felt like they had at a home, and that it was inclusive. But then she also realized that, well, it's inclusive for those who can afford a $39 foundation or a $44 palette. So it wasn't, from her perspective, wasn't all inclusive. And that's where she developed the UOMA by Sharon C brand to really be able to create a journey for the consumer, so that you can really capture them where they are, both from where they shop and also from affordability standpoint as well. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. Here's kind of the UOMA Beauty retail footprint, both across the prestige and the mass brand. So all in all, over 5,000 distribution points that we have. The majority of those distribution points are on the mass brand. So we partner with, Nordstrom's and Nordstrom Rack. We have some Canadian customers like Shoppers Drug Mart, Walmart Canada. Ulta, Harrods, John Lewis, Selfridges, Boots, a lot of those are in the UK. And then, we've got Walmart, CVS, Superdrugs, and then we've got some .com retailers as well. One of the things I think is important when you're talking about, opportunities in retail, this is a very key message that it's always good to keep in the back of your mind. Being wanted is amazing, but it's not a strategy. And so one of the things that I know happens is, you start getting phone calls and these retailers like, oh, we want you, and it's also very critical. And I know that can be exciting, but it's also good to kind of take a step back and make sure that you're creating a purpose-driven strategy around, around who your partners are going to be. So very quickly, I'll kind of talk about kind of a purpose-driven retail strategy that we that I introduced at UOMA, and it's really about product, but also a message. We are unique in that not only do we have products, but we have a message that ties along with that as well. Again, about authenticity, diversity, and inclusion. So one of the things, we look at is developing a distribution strategy. And really that is, who's your target audience and how do you engage them? And then creating anchors. And what I mean by that is I don't think anybody has unlimited capacity and resources within their organizations. And so you really need to define who those anchors are going to be for you to be able to know how do you divvy up the capacity and time that you have to invest in these partnerships. So one of the things that, that we do is kind of look at, all right, from a consumer perspective, who do we want to touch, right? And basically it's, how do we, it's the suburbs, basically, it's the urban shoppers, and how do we want, and how do we want to reach them? And so one of the things that we did was we looked at this and said, okay, so if we want to touch the suburbs, how exactly do we go about doing that? And from that perspective, we looked at, okay, who can be our partner, who covers the suburbs for us? And we looked at, okay, Walmart is a good strategic play in regards to that. So this is prior to you even kind of making any relationships, or partnering with any retailer. You want to define, how you're going to cover the consumer that you're trying to touch. When you look at urban as an example, CVS is huge in those urban markets, right? And so basically you just start to plug and play, and then you come up with a matrix of, who the consumer that you're targeting and how you exactly want to reach them. The next piece is the purpose. And so you have to define from that retail strategy, what purpose does that retailer play within your strategy? So as an example, there's discovery. And what does discovery mean? That means basically that, it's a retail environment that people tend to use as a discovery zone. So as an example, Walmart would not necessarily be considered a discovery retailer, right? For the most part, I don't know if you're like me, but, if you're shopping at Walmart, you probably know what you're going to get before you even pull in the parking lot, right? And so that's not necessarily a discovery environment, right? And so you look at a Target. A lot of people actually go to Target and they use that as a discovery. So what's out, what's new, and so forth. And so you start to develop this, right? And so when you talk about reach, then you look at a Walmart, right? So if you're just trying to get a broad reach, if you're trying to get in front of as many people as you possibly can, then you look at the distribution for Walmart and the number of outlets that they have, the number of shoppers that walk through the Walmart door. And then that starts to frame, okay, who do you want to partner with and why? So that gives you an example of kind of some of the things that we're talking about. If you're talking about an experience, you would look at a Harvey Nicks, which is a premium retailer, prestige retailer in the UK. You would look at Ulta. Specifically, as you have the specialty beauty shopper that is going. Ulta could fit in discovery and experience as an example. When you look at reach, again, if QVC is of interest to you, again, that would be an opportunity to reach a tremendous amount of people. So as you start to kind of look at, the retail landscape for you and your business, you start to define, who that consumer is, and then what's the purpose of that partnership. So as an example for UOMA, from a prestige perspective, we feel like Ulta and JCPenney's, based on that matrix that I just kind of shared with you, fits how we want to really put the partners we want to have as our retail anchors, as an example. For the mass, CVS and Walmart fits that. So Walmart from a suburban perspective, CVS from an urban market. Walmart from a reach perspective, CVS from more of a experience or discovery perspective. So they've got, in some of the beauty and real life stores, they've got, beauty support there that, can help the shopper focus on specific needs that the shopper may have. So that's how we kind of divvied up that strategy. When you look at secondary anchors, again, so, you've got core anchors, the one you really want to overinvest in because those are going to help drive the growth that you're looking for. And then you've got those secondary anchors that you can also include as well. So a Harvey Nicks from a prestige perspective, as I mentioned, a Super Drugs in the UK as an example for the mass business. So those are specific things. And then again, as far as how you engage the retailer, I'm not going to get into much of that. I know you guys know your why for your business, and obviously that is, needs to reign through to any conversations you have with the retailers. But, apologies. So from a commercial terms perspective, obviously these are some key things that you need to be considering, margin, returns, delivery, testers, if there's a tester program, payment terms, exclusivity, and sales targets. And I point out the sales targets is actually a key one. I don't know if you guys are a fan of the Love Jones movie. I'm a big fan of the movie, but there's a part in there where Savon is talking to Darius and he says, falling in love is easy. Somebody please tell me how to stay there. Don't know if you guys remember that part, but getting into these retailers, I know it's sometimes a task, but when you look at staying there, sometimes getting in there is the easy part. And some of these things that the commercial terms will allow you to set up yourself for success from the beginning, for you to be able to stay there. And I think one of the key watch outs from a commercial terms, perspective that you should remember is, very, very much watch the return policy, because a lot of people kind of get stuck with that. They don't realize kind of the impact that's going to have on their business, but you can know that you can cap your returns as a percentage of your sales, as an example. That's one of the things that's been beneficial for us as a business. Prepayments, again, so if you're having some issue with production and being able to produce enough products for some of the launch orders that are sometimes fairly large, some of these retailers will prepay you. So they'll give you, 50% of the launch order up front, or some variation of that for you to be able to complete production and be able to service those launch orders, as an example as well. Sales targets, make sure you're understanding from a sales target perspective, is the expectation turnover per linear foot, or is it a percentage of inventory? So those can kind of help shape some of the things that, as you are making decisions on which retailer and kind of the portfolio in those retailers, those are some of the things that would be, key for you to remember as well. And just always note, the bigger the check, the greater the expectations, I think is a key thing to remember as well. So I'll stop there. I just wanted to kind of put some kind of high level things down, kind of provide some, some data on how we shape our retail, our strategy, and some keynotes in regards to kind of how you can partner with some retailers in regards to some of the things that may come up as you guys are having conversations with them. So I'll pause there and open it up from there, Ryan. I don't know if we can open it up for questions, if anybody has any questions, or you can just throw them out and we'll go from there.
Yeah, amazing job, Fred. Very, very thorough, very, very informative. Things are jumping off right now. So we have our first question from Yoki. Would you like to come off of mute, Yoki, and ask your question, or would you like me to ask? Yoki, would you like to ask your question? All right, just like usually like to give it 2 calls first. I'll go ahead and ask the question. Okay. She had a good one. So she was wondering if you could please elaborate on how you determine your anchors. Is that based on main demographics of your customers, like where they live? What does it look like when you're trying to determine your anchors?
Yeah, great question. So when you look at from our perspective for our anchors, when we looked at the prestige business as an example, we really wanted to make sure that we understood where our shoppers shop. but also, the shopper that we wanted to speak to. So as an example, and this is kind of new news, but we just began a relationship with JCPenney's. And the reason for that is a couple of things. So from a prestige perspective, so sometimes when people think JCPenney's, maybe they don't think, prestige. A couple of things that were important to us. 40%, roughly 40% of everybody who walks through JCPenney's doors is a person of color. So when you have a brand that's focused on diversity, inclusion, and authenticity, that's a huge opportunity there for us to be able to partner with the retailer that has a customer that can resonate with our message. That's a key piece, is for you to be able to understand, the shopper that can resonate with the message that you have as a brand. I think the second piece is when it comes to mass, as an example, we wanted to make sure that we could speak to as broad an audience as possible. So when I talked about kind of that suburban urban, so what you have is Walmart as an example for us. It speaks to the suburban shopper, right? That person who's pretty much, you may potentially going there to get their kind of day-to-day shopping needs met, but it gives us a high degree of awareness and brand exposure because of that. When you look at the urban shoppers, we looked at from all of those retailers that kind of specifically met that need. So, there was the CVS's, the Walgreens, I could keep going and going. One of the things we looked at is, who can meet that need, but also provides a support mechanism so that, we also have that ability to be able to grow the brand within the retailer. So because CVS, again, both covers that urban market, but also has created a beauty space that is more of an experiential element to it. It also has a support built in from their beauty advisors as well. We felt like that was the right partner for us to partner with because it ticked a lot of those boxes. So one, covered the urban market. Number two, created a discovery space for a shopper. And number three, had built-in support to be able to help drive the business there. So those are some of the things that we thought about when we decided to kind of hone in on who our anchors were going to be, both from a prestige and a mass side.
Really appreciate that, Fred. Shamika, did you have a question?
Yes, hi, how are you? This is good. He kind of answered it in a way. So when you said you had the two separate brands, the Prestige and the first one, was it intentional? And when you started it, because you wanted to cover those two types of demographics in regards to the anchor stores, or is just that you wanted to cover, a wider array of customers and those two types of products?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, a little bit of both. So, again, as I mentioned, Sharon created she started with the Prestige brand because there wasn't really a brand at that time who she felt spoke to again, diversity, inclusion, and authenticity. And so she wanted to drive that. And so that in itself, from a price point perspective, it almost kind of, tells you, kind of which direction you need to go from a prestige perspective, right? So, and then from a mass, the mass was really created because, again, the idea of, we want to be a brand for everyone. And it can't just be a brand for everyone who can afford, to spend $39, $40 for a product. And so that's when the UOMA by Sharon C brand was created. And it was really to take to take the customer on a journey. And so again, the customer may be at, from a price point perspective, looking for products in that $8 to $12 to $15 range. But as circumstances grow, as their own, situation moves across their journey, we felt like we get them at that point and they'll stay loyal to the brand if we can really speak to some of the needs that they have as they move up and maybe want to spend, let's say, $20, $30, $40 on a specific beauty item. So it was both. One, you have to cater kind of to the retail environment that you're speaking to, but also from a brand perspective, we wanted to make sure that we were creating something where all could feel like they had a home.
Okay, one other question. Did you separate the sites or did you keep them together? Even though the
Sorry,
messaging
say that
was
one more
different.
time.
Did you separate the sites or did you keep everything on the one page even though the messaging was different and the experience is different?
Yeah, so if you just look at our .com as an example, so you can shop either or on the same site. Or if you just wanted to shop this, by search, you could shop the products that way as well. But it's really one umbrella kind of speaking to, your needs at that point. And one of the things, a lot of the things that, we're seeing now is, we're seeing somebody want a, $39 foundation, but also use a $8 lip gloss as well, right? And so people are mixing and matching as well. So it's not like, hey, you're going to just shop prestige, you're only going to stay prestige. That's not the case anymore. Even us as consumers, we're mixing and matching things, constantly as well. So I think that's just kind of where brands are going. So.
Super helpful, Fred. We've got a lot of questions coming in. This one came from K King. Do you have any thoughts on Amazon?
I've got a lot of thoughts on Amazon. So it's actually something that we are pursuing very aggressively right now. I think it's a platform you can't ignore. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to be able to reach customers in a different way. And so it's absolutely something we're pursuing. We got invited here recently to join the Amazon UK platform, which is by invitation only. And so we were very proud to be able to get invited to join that. So we'll actually be launching our prestige brand on Amazon in the UK here within the next 30 days. So we're very excited about that. And then we also got an invitation as a Black founded business to join Amazon here in the US as well. And that's definitely something we're going to be participating in here later on this year. So I think it's a great platform. I think that it allows you the ability to reach your shoppers in an economic way. And I think it's an opportunity that's going to continue to grow. And I think it's a huge platform for Black founders specifically.
Amazing. Really appreciate that, Fred. We're just going to be going down the line with these questions in the chat. If you all would like for me to read them off, feel free to just DM me. I'm just going to go down. But this one's from Samara Walker. She wanted to know, what are some creative ways to drive traffic to a retailer on .com as a small budget brand with limited marketing budget? Any proven strategies for direct ROI?
Yeah, I'll be fully transparent with you. I'm not the marketing genius behind our brand. What I can tell you is that, definitely one of the things that has been huge for us has been influencers. And we've had actually a few of our products go viral, specifically last year, just based on influencers. And so I think that's one of the key pieces that we've been able to utilize as our business. I know we were very aggressive on social media, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, our own .com business. We use email marketing. A lot of those things are driven by our marketing team. So I'm not, again, transparent. I'm not an expert on that, but we've got a small and mighty team. And I know a lot of people tell me from the social media, it looks like we've got 10 people in our marketing group, but really it's only a small group of 3 people. So I definitely think influencers has been tremendously helpful for us. So I would say that would be one of the things that I would call out. But again, not my expertise. So.
An incredible question nonetheless. And tomorrow we can work on getting a session together, maybe around influencers and strategies that smaller brands can utilize when looking at marketing.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem at all. Incredible question. From Yoki. Yoki, would you like me to read it off or do you want to jump off? All right, I'll go ahead and read it off. Yoki was wondering, when entering prestige and mass, did you change your pricing strategy based on the level you were entering into? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the pricing strategy didn't change based on the level we were entering into. Obviously, you want to look out into the marketplace and see what the comps are for competitive products. And so I think it's critical to look at those to come up with kind of a matrix of brands that that are comparable to your specific brand, SKUs, what have you, and kind of look at the price point there. You obviously have to look at your own, kind of, financial, P&L in regards to, cost of goods and all of those pieces. But you definitely you definitely want to find a range. And based on that, you can look at, if you're offering something different, then obviously that can impact your price point. If this is a new technology, a new innovation to the marketplace, those all take, you all need to take those into account into your price point as well. From a prestige perspective, there's benchmarks as an example. And so you would look at, for UOMA as an example, we would look at those companies that we try to benchmark ourselves against. And if we come up with a new product, like a new foundation, a new, lipstick, a new, blush, bronzer, we would look at those companies that as a benchmark, and we would look at, okay, from a price point, do we offer something that's new technology that could obviously impact the price point that people would see value in and want to pay more. Or as an example, same on mass. When you look at mass, again, you've got those companies you want to benchmark yourself against and say, okay, where do we hold up? Are we 10% more? Are we 5% more? Do we want to be on par with the pricing for those retailers as well? So all of those things you would look at. You don't necessarily want to cater your retail strategy, your pricing around the retailer that you're looking to target. It's really about the value add, the value proposition that you have for your products. And then you can also define then which retailers that will work in, as an example. So again, when you look at prestige, there's a certain benchmarks you would look there. When you look at mass, there's certain benchmarks you would look there as well. So I wouldn't let the retailer dictate that. I would let your, kind of your mission, what you're trying to do, and then benchmarking against your, the competitive landscape kind of drive that piece for you.
Very, very helpful, Fred, dropping a lot of gems here. This next question comes from Dorianne. She was wondering, are there any operational watch-outs or considerations when thinking of expanding overseas? Specifically interested in the UK and Canada. So any insights you have there would be really appreciated.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. So, we recently, as of 2022, launched in the Canadian market, both for our prestige brand and our mass brand at UOMA Beauty. One of the things that you have to look at is just the cost to serve. So it was important for us. We did a tremendous amount of research in, do we want to put a team there? Do we want to go through a full service distributor? Do we want to just, kind of manage it from the US? Ultimately, what we found was from a cost perspective, and then also being able to make, kind of a solid decision on how we wanted to manage that business, we decided to go with a full service distributor. And so basically a full service distributor would take care of kind of everything from A to Z. So, obviously your part would be getting them the product, but then they would service the customers there for you. So they would have, as an example, ours is ACI, a company called ACI. So they both warehouse our product, store our product. They've got a sales team that basically goes out and meets with Walmart Canada, as an example, which is one of our customers, and works on strategy and how to build the business. They meet with Shoppers Drug Mart, which is our prestige retailer in Canada, and they talk about, again, how to drive the business. We're in 32 locations for Shopper Drug Mart, and they have 600 in total. So they also talk about, what does expansion look like? What needs to happen for us to be able to expand? They also kind of handle the logistics, right? So shipping, they take care of the EDI transmissions and all kind of those back end operational functions. They also have a sales organization that goes out to, example, the Shoppers Drug Mart, prestige doors, and they basically do merchandising. They top up orders and that type of support, sales support at the store as well. They also go to the Walmart doors and do a similar function for us. So we felt like that was the most cost-effective way and a targeted approach for us to be able to handle a Canadian expansion. Again, some companies, will also just kind of manage it from the U.S. and try to do it that way. You can also, go through other distributors as well. But for us, it was important for us to make sure that if we're going to be there, we're going to be there and execute with excellence and do it right. And because this third-party distributor knows the market, they're in the market, they have relationships with all the retailers in the market, including ones that we're not currently sitting in, like grocery and other things that potentially may be expansion opportunities for us in the future. We felt it was the most logical decision to partner with that third party. And it would be similar, right? So there's countries that, pretty much are only ran by distribution. And so you look at countries kind of in South America, things like that. Australia is another country that for the most part is ran by distribution. India is another example. And then you've got some that, you could potentially go through distribution, or you could potentially do it yourself, like the UK and other countries like that. So it's fairly open-ended, but if you're looking for expansion, I would definitely kind of research that distribution model because it can really be plug and play and take a lot of the complexity out of expanding outside the U.S. For your business.
Incredible. Very, very helpful there. The next question comes from Dr. Kanks. We've got a lot of good insight here, so bear with me. But the question is, could you please elaborate on how you approached those retailers that you've engaged with? Did you have a sales representative? Also, can you elaborate on the upfront costs associated?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the first part in regards to kind of engaging retailers. So it's twofold. One, obviously, it kind of, once you're in some retailers, they all kind of start knocking. It's almost like dating, right? Right. So, one of the things we focused on, and this is why I mentioned to you kind of earlier, and I said one of my slides were, being wanted is amazing, but it's not a strategy.
Right.
Right. And that's where you have to be, very careful, because one of the things that we've been privileged with at UOMA Beauty, especially when I started in 2021, is I was getting calls from retailers, constantly saying, we want the brand, we want the brand, we want the brand. And that can be enticing and exciting, right? Because you're like, oh, you want to be wanted and you want to go in. But that's why I kind of spent the time in talking about, how the ways you can really try to develop a purpose-driven retail strategy and make sure that any partner that you are that you're deciding to, a retailer that you're deciding to partner with, fits in those boxes, right? Do they speak to the consumer that you want to reach? And are you going to be able to reach the consumer with that retailer, right? I think that's the important piece. In regards to approaching them, I think that obviously every founder is going to know their why, right, for their business. But some of the things you can do that has been successful is, reach out to them. You've got a ton of retailers. I believe it's up to, if I'm not mistaken, 28 or almost 30 retailers that have now signed up for the 15% pledge, which I don't know if all of you guys are familiar with the 15% pledge, but there are retailers that basically said, listen, our shelves need to match the demographics of the US. And so they're basically pledging that 15% of their shelf space will be given to Black-owned brands. And so I would definitely ask you or request that you kind of research that, because it's a list of retailers, and I think more and more are signing up every day. So that's one avenue you could go to as well. And then as you start to craft who you want to speak to, at what consumer base you want to target, you can start to then research which retailers kind of fit that for you. So I think that's important as well. From a cost to serve perspective, obviously it's going to be, a variable depending on, which retailers you're trying to target, if it's mass, if it's prestige. One of the things I think is key is that know what tools you have in your arsenal. That's why I think it's key that I mentioned, make sure you understand kind of what the margins are. Make sure you understand, the terms. Make sure you understand the shipping. Make sure you understand all of these things up front, so you don't get caught off guard. Make sure you understand the expectations for the brand. As an example, some retailers, as I mentioned, will tell you, we're going to give you 2 feet of space, and the expectation is for you to sell X amount per linear foot on a weekly basis. Some people will say, some retailers will say, you've got 2 feet of space, and we just want you to sell 4% of your total dollars that are in that space. So as an example, if you've got, $1,000 worth of product sitting on the shelf, they basically want you to turn $40 a week. So it's a 4%, whereas some base it purely on a sales per linear foot. So those are some of the things you should watch out for as well. And then make sure that you are tapping into, a lot of these retailers are willing, again, as I mentioned, to prepay you. So if you start developing relationships and you find a partner that fits, and you're finding challenges in regards to this, kind of, these launch orders are sometimes fairly large. There's no shame in asking them, listen, I need help for production. I mean, I'll be fully transparent with you. We do it as a business as well. Even at our size, as an example, with a couple of the launches we've had recently, we said, listen, we've got to go produce a tremendous amount of product. Are you willing to partner with us and hold hands with us and prepay some of the opening order so that we can go produce the product? And they've been very, very receptive to that. So I would ask you definitely think about those opportunities as well as you're looking at, of ways to kind of the cost structure of some of these opportunities as well.
Yeah, it really seems like entering a retail relationship is a large step that comes with a lot of ancillary aspects that can really affect your business. That reminds me, I missed the second aspect of Dr. Kinks's question, so I'm going to ask that here. She also wanted to know, or she had written rather, that she heard that some retailers like Walmart would send your products back if they stayed on the shelf for too long. For one, is that true? And two, could you share some additional marketing strategies? I know you touched on the influencers, but was there any other secret sauce or magic that you employed in order to stay on shelves? I think folks would like to know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I mean, and it's key, right? Because as you start to develop these relationships, as I mentioned, that quote, it sometimes people think, oh, it was easy to get in. I didn't realize how difficult it was to stay. One of the things in regards to Walmart, again, every retailer is going to have their own commercial terms. So in regards to returns, as an example, and it was one of the call outs that I put in my deck because it's definitely one that can trip a lot of people up if they really don't know. And so you can absolutely, that's all negotiable. And I definitely would recommend that you guys look at, when you talk about commercial terms, negotiating a cap to your returns as a percentage of sales. And so again, you can cap it at 2%, you can cap it at 1%. It's all negotiable. But, it just depends on the retailer. So as an example, one retail, so you may have heard that from a retailer that didn't have that conversation with Walmart in advance. And so it's not a part of their commercial terms. And so if it's sitting on the shelf too long or it's not turning, then Walmart, basically, says, hey, we're going to return this product. But that is definitely something that you can negotiate and you can build into your commercial terms as well. So I would, absolutely look at that as something that you would want to put in there. So I think that was and in regards from the marketing perspective, from retailers, again, mass and prestige, are different. A lot of these retailers have marketing network or their own platforms that you can plug into, and they'll partner with you on that. So a lot of times, Walmart has the Walmart Connect, which basically is a platform. It is fee-based, but a lot of times, especially for Black founders, they will either waive those fees or they will negotiate those fees down for you to be able to participate. But Walmart Connect basically is an opportunity for you to plug into as they to their data-driven marketing systems, which is they know who buys beauty, they know who, which of their customers buy specific products, they know where their customer specific stores, where their customers shop at that buy specific products, and they do target marketing to those consumers. So versus you kind of just throwing marketing dollars out and hoping, kind of the marketing net and hoping that you make a catch, there are specific targets that you can partner with Walmart through their Walmart Connect system to be able to get more specific. Nordstrom example has a similar thing. Most retailers have specific opportunities for you to plug into their data-driven systems to be able to make sure that you're spending your marketing dollars wisely. And so I would also look at, when you talk about commercial terms and kind of developing a relationship, build that into the commercial terms as well. So, for the first 12 months, a zero cost on tapping into your marketing platforms, or, 50%, reduction in costs, for year one, 25% reduction in cost for year two. These are all things, because here's the reality of it. When they're courting you and they want you in, the promises, will be plentiful. That is your opportunity to get as much as you possibly can, because once you're in and the courting process is over, it's all going to be about performance. How are you performing? So you want to make sure that as the courting process from the very beginning, you are getting as much as you possibly can so that you can be as successful as possible within their environment. And they're willing to give you those things up front.
Really, really helpful there, Fred. Thank you. This next question comes from Eunice. She was wondering, did you use U.S. Commercial Services and/or Exim Bank when you went international?
We did not. So I'm not familiar with either one. I know for our Canadian business, we actually have a U.S. bank that has a partner, RBC Capital in Canada as well. So that was an easy transition for us. I can tell you, if you do expand to Canada and you do partner with certain retailers up there, certain retailers will want you to have a Canadian bank account. And so you may have to go up to Canada, open up a bank account, because a lot of them want you to obviously do it in person for security reasons. So some retailers will require that, just as a kind of an FYI. And then in regards to the UK, no, we have a UK specific bank so I'm not familiar with either one of those.
Very helpful. Appreciate that. As I've listened in on this conversation, you've touched on a lot of amazing things, but what stands out to me is that understanding your customer demographic and negotiations seem to be two key aspects to establishing a retail partnership that works for everybody. So I guess I'm kind of curious to know two things. One, for a lot of these earlier brands that are ramping up and trying to iterate and figure out what that customer demographic is, did you rely on any external data as you were approaching or being approached by Walmart and Ulta to better understand what their demographics look like? Or what did the research look like to know if their demographic matches what supports these respective brands. So that's question number one. And number two, as you were dealing in negotiations, did you come in with a lawyer or a broker, or did you just, is it best to strike when the iron's super hot and you're super, super popular, and then use that leverage to gain, favorable terms? Curious your thoughts.
No, great questions. So yeah, and I think this is the important piece, and I think it's a conversation that that we kind of need to have. So when you look at UOMA as an example, one of the things that can kind of become a trap is it's a black founded brand, which means it's a black brand, which means it's for just black people, right? And obviously it's a color cosmetic brand, and so obviously that's not the case. But that's a trap that we can sometimes fall into. The reality of it is that one of the things you need to understand is who your target is, right? So we talked about that, and kind of how you come up with that is basically on the products that you're serving. So it may be a product for everyone, but you may have a specific messaging behind your product that may gear to a specific, not necessarily color of people, but a specific mindset, right? So when you think about UOMA as an example, it's not black, it's not white, it's not yellow, it's not pink. It's for everyone. It's for everyone who wants to be authentic, right? And so that in itself means that that's a broad spectrum. And so one of the things you need to look at is that. But you also need to be where your brand is going to resonate. So as an example, I mentioned to you the new retail partner that we're launching. And the reality of it is that 40% of everybody who walks through their door is a person of color. So when you just look at diversity and inclusion and also authenticity, we want to speak to that audience. Currently, which comes to a surprise to a lot of people, 68% of our customers are Caucasian. And so we've got a tremendous amount of opportunity in that people of color spectrum for us to be able to speak to. And so when we look at that and say, okay, we've got a brand that focuses on diversity, inclusion, authenticity. That's not a color. That's a mindset. But we also know that within people of color, that message resonates, then we need to be there, right? And so when you looked at where we were from a retail perspective for prestige, we were in Ulta, we're in Nordstrom, we're in Harrods, we're in Selfridges, we're in John Lewis, we're in some of these names, that you guys probably heard of. Fully transparent, when you hear those names, diversity inclusion may not be the first thing that comes into your mind, right? And so we had to kind of reset and think about also, if we are truly living up to our message, we need to be where that message resonates. And so I think that's the piece that kind of drove that also comes a part of that that retail strategy as well, right? Know who you're wanting to talk to. And then go to where you're going to see them, right? I think the second part of your question in regards to kind of attorneys and things like that. So when it comes to negotiations, obviously, we've got a sales team that kind of focuses on making sure that the commercial terms are where we feel like we can be successful with that retailer. But also we have a lawyer that basically once those terms are agreed, and it comes to finalizing the document that reviews, that document for us, just to make sure that all the legalese, so quote unquote, are taken care of. Because there's a lot of things that can be, in the small print that right. That you don't realize until an issue arises or circumstance arises, and then it kind of bites you. So I do think it's important to make sure that when it comes to before signing a contract, that you get some sort of legal counsel in regards to that.
Very helpful. We have an additional question from Dr. Hanks. I'm just going to go ahead and read the whole thing, but it reads, would you please elaborate about performance? On average, how many products would they put in their shelves? How often are they ordering? Every month, potentially? And she also noted that she's a small business owner and was mostly doing farmers markets and just launched in one retail store in Virginia. We are in one store and about to get into 20 additional stores. And I would like to get into their stores nationwide, but at the same time, I want to make sure the products won't stay on shelves in the States, where she's never, been in business there. So yeah, that's her question.
Okay, that you're testing my power to remember all of that, Ryan. But that's okay. I think I was good with my
Well,
notes.
we can chop it up, Fred, if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries.
Let's do that. Let's do it. We want to make sure you cover everything. So
No,
there's
absolutely,
three
absolutely.
questions here.
So
Let me go ahead.
So very quickly, I think the first thing you mentioned was performance.
Yes.
And so I'll touch on that very, very quickly. So I think, again, it just depends on the retailer. And so, I've seen a large number of kind of, metrics that are used to kind of base that. But like I said, what you will come across the most in kind of retailers is they will look at turn. And so that turn can specifically be, if you've got, 1 linear foot of space on the shelf that your products are on. And again, what that means as far as number of products will vary depending on the products that that you have, that your business has, right? So if it's a lipstick, obviously you can fit quite a lot. If it's, a palette or a skincare item, maybe not as much. So they basically, that's why they just measure it by the linear foot. And so basically their performance, kind of structure would be for that linear foot, we expect either as a turn perspective for you to turn, 1 unit per week. It could be 0.5 per week. It could be 3 per week. It just depends on the retailer. So they could put a number of units performance measurement there. They could put a dollar amount performance measurement for that linear foot. So they could say, instead of units, we need this linear foot to turn $100 a week, right? And so basically they understand from their category managers at these retailers what their current turn rate is, either by units or dollars, for every foot they have in their beauty space. And so they're putting your measurement up against that. Also, it could be just as a percentage of sales. So as an example, we'll give you this 1 linear foot, and within this 1 linear foot, you're going to have $1,000 worth of retail worth of products there. We expect you to turn every week 4% of that. So basically that means $40 every week we expect for you to sell in this 1 linear foot on a weekly basis, right? And so if you just kind of calculate that by the number of weeks, they basically want you to turn that entire shelf, twice a year. If you just think about 4% every, across 52 weeks, example. So that's basically a full turn twice a year. And a full turn basically just means a full sell of all the products, a replen, and then another full sell of all the products. Basically, that's 2 turns. So that is kind of how they look at performance for the most part. There may be some other ways, but in general, that's kind of what you will come across. In regards to very quickly, just how often they order, just depends on the retailer. So as an example, Walmart, theoretically, because they have automatic replenishment, can order every month. And because we're in 3,000 stores, they could literally order multiple orders every day. And that's why you have an EDI set up, because that's how basically Walmart orders through EDI, and it's just constant replenishment. For an Ulta, as an example, they also order through EDI, but they order twice a month. So 2 replens a month. And then depending on if we have a new product launches or some sort of, marketing initiative like 21 Days of Beauty, they may put an additional order in. So it really just depends on the retailers. And then the last piece, because I see it's 1 o'clock, so just the last piece as far as expansion. First of all, congratulations on getting, going from a farmer's market to getting some retail space, retail shelf space. That's amazing. And it's amazing the opportunity that you have to potentially expand as well. Here's where I would say is just make sure you're taking a stair-step approach. Because as I mentioned to you before, sometimes we can get enticed with the large opening order or, the big check. But with the big check comes the big expectations. So, I would just be very cognizant about making sure that you have a plan on how you're going to market. It sounds to me like because you've had the farmer's market, because you're in this one store, kind of where your home base is, there's a level of awareness that has been driven from the brand. And as you kind of expand outside of that area, you may not have that same awareness. So I would just make sure that you're sitting down and making sure you understand kind of how to develop a plan to drive awareness as well as along with that distribution, whether it's, via social media, whether it's other channels of marketing, just depending on kind of what your cost to serve is. But I would just make sure that you're doing those hand in hand versus kind of expanding, trying to, get some funds from that expansion and then doing it, because you could create a situation where, you may be underperforming and you always want the retailer, in a good place where you're performing, you're doing well, and they continuously want to expand. So you don't want to kind of expand too far too fast. So that would be the only advice I would give there.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for your time today, everyone. It was such a pleasure to have you all here today. This was our second virtual session in the retail series, and we look forward to the third. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thank you.